Hello, shameless writers. For today's video, we're going to be talking about not how to write a memoir, but why. I've given several talks on memoirs and how to write them and the best way to structure them. One thing I noticed about the participants who come to my talks or the people who type in questions for a webinar is that often people will feel like they need a reason to write a memoir. Whereas if you want to write a work of fiction, if you want to write a plain old biography of a public figure, I feel like those authors don't necessarily feel like they need to be granted permission. They don't feel the need to justify their work. They simply tell people, oh, I'm writing a book, it's about this. And that's it. Memoir writers, on the other hand, seem to feel like they need a specific reason or specific permission in order to justify why they should be allowed to contribute their life story to the world lexicon. I don't really understand this idea that you need someone else's permission or that you need to explain your motivation to write a book. But for those of you who do, or worse, for those of you who may have encountered someone who feels like you need to be asking their permission to write your story, there are people like that out there. Today's video is discussing 5 reasons why someone might want or need to write a memoir. Number 1, as a gift to your family. You wouldn't think it, but this is actually the most common, at least among my clients. More often than not, a person will go through their entire life working hard in whatever industry that they work through. They have their children, they live their lives. Sometimes they're still married to their children's other parents, sometimes they're not. But then the author finds themselves, maybe they're retired or maybe they're still working, but their children are out of the house and they feel like a part of their life is missing. Worse than that, they feel like their children, to whom they devoted so much of their lives, really don't know them all that well. I once had a client tell me that she was sharing just a regular anecdote about her school days with her grown son, and her son was so taken aback that his darling mother smoked cigarettes. Of course, it was a fun moment between mother and son, but it made her think, wow, my son has a very distorted view of me. He only views me as his mother, as his father's wife. He viewed her, in her opinion, as this sort of idealized Madonna figure. Now, from talking to her, I could see that she had lived a very, shall we say, religious life. She was not someone who had a dark secret past. But she did feel like her children's understanding of who she was as a person and how she arrived at this current stage in her life was incomplete. And so more often than not, memoir writers are retired. Their children are grown and they want to leave something behind. They don't want to make a lot of money. They don't want to go on to fame and fortune. They just want a record of their life. They want a witness that they were here, that they contributed. So if you're spending a lot of time watching videos or reading articles about memoirs and you're kind of getting thrown off by all this talk about sales figures and marketing, and you think to yourself, that's not really what I want to do, then that's fine. If you need permission, I'm giving it to you. Write a memoir and leave it for your family. Number 2, to spread a message or raise awareness. It may not seem like it now in this age of TMI, but there was a time that there were subjects that you just didn't talk about. If you were the victim of certain types of trauma or abuse, you didn't tell anybody, not your family, not your friends. You certainly didn't put it in a book and publish it. As such, there were whole swathes of people who felt horribly isolated, as if they had done something wrong in their life, whether it was an eating disorder, whether it was suffering from sexual abuse from a family member. There are so many things that happen to people that they don't want to speak about, that they don't even want to tell a therapist about. 9 times out of 10, those people reach for books written by others who have gone through something similar. Even now that we have so much information and everybody is sharing every little thing about their life. Here's what I had for breakfast. Did you know that I suffer from depression? If you didn't, you know now. There's so much sharing, in fact, that now we have the opposite problem. It's not, I don't want to tell people because I don't want to know. Now it's, I don't want to tell people my story because they'll think I'm sharing it just to get attention for myself. If you've had that thought about writing a memoir about your specific experience, let me stop you. For people who have gone through something similar or are going through it right now, regardless of what it is, even if they're surrounded by people who love them and have a supportive network of friends and family, which I'm sorry to say seems to be rare in this day and age, those loving family members still probably don't understand what that person is going through because they themselves have not gone through it. Even something as everyday as a traffic accident, if there's an injury involved of yourself or of, God forbid, the other driver, many people have difficulty managing those emotions, and many people don't have the money to go to a therapist. What they do have money for is your ebook, where you tell them what you went through, how you got control of your emotions, and how they can too. Your reason for writing it is not self-indulgent. And raising awareness, yes, of course, is often used as a euphemism for complaining about nonsense on the internet, but it is still actually a thing. And awareness of a subject in general, for instance, abuse, is not the same thing as reaching out with your story, your specific abuse, and allowing your reader who is experiencing something similar to gain comfort from the knowledge that you came through on the other side. Number 3, to refute the popular narrative. Going back to this age of so much information directly in the palm of our hand, there's nothing more isolating than Googling a subject or an issue that we're experiencing and finding that our own experience does not match the popular wisdom. People who experience medical issues that are either not very well known or are often doubted as just a physical manifestation of psychological illness know this better than anybody. Regardless of the best intentions of our knowledge-oriented world, at the end of the day, most people live and die by what Google tells them, specifically on the first 4 pages of it. So if your experience deviates from what Google and YouTube and all of those other large electronic repositories of knowledge put first on the list, guess what that means? That means you are left wondering, is there something wrong with me? Am I just a crazy person? Or in the case of differing opinions, you think to yourself, am I just alone? Am I wrong? Am I missing something? And 9 times out of 10, no, you're not. And neither are the thousands, the hundreds of thousands, the millions of people who have something similar going on with them. The next one is a little touchy, but I do want to mention it. And that is to drop a bombshell or reveal information. This one normally doesn't apply to people because if you're going to write a bombshell book, it's either about a person who has a large public platform, some third party, or you yourself have a large public platform and you are spilling the tea. They're less common, but they typically have a much higher profile. And more often than not, if you're writing a bomb-dropping book, you've already consulted with attorneys, you've already done your due diligence to make sure that you don't get sued. But even if you do consult with a lawyer, even if there's absolutely nothing in the book that is actionable either in a court of law or civilly, there are still serious consequences for revealing secrets, even if it's about not a famous person, even if it's only about you as the person with a platform. Maybe people won't think as well of you after your book comes out. Maybe you will make a faux pas that some people interpret as racist, or maybe like Liam Neeson, you reveal something in your past where you were racist, like so racist, but it was 30 to 40 years ago. You recognize the error and you want to tell people about it, but people still hold a grudge because that's the world that we live in. So if you're going to do a bombshell book, be mindful that just because you can't get sued, that doesn't mean that's the only consequence that can happen to you. And finally, number 5, it's easy / I want to make money. People say, write what you know. And what do you know better than yourself? And if you're the person who has read all of those internet articles that says everybody's got a book in them and you can make thousands of dollars on Kindle ebooks with 0 effort, you think to yourself, you know what? I'm just going to fire off this memoir and I'm going to make the money. I'm going to watch it roll in and it's going to be fabulous. I saved this one for last because based on my experience as an editor, this assumption is most frequently incorrect. All those articles you're reading about how easy it is to make money off of Kindle ebooks, they're probably from like 2009 or something, just so you know. Regarding the money, most people who make just a killing off of their memoirs are already famous. People pick up the book not because they want to hear the person's message or because they're looking for assistance with their own issues, but because the author is already famous and the person knows who they are, they know their face, they know their name. They just want to know more about the famous person in their private lives. It's not because they're hoping to actually learn anything about themselves to improve their own lives. Memoirs written by the little people like you and me, they're designed to inspire, to teach, to assist. That's a totally different reason than picking up a book by a rock star groupie and wanting to get all the dirt on your famous rock star. Additionally, all those famous people who write their memoirs, they didn't write anything, not one blessed thing. They sat in a room with a nerdy ghostwriter like me, except with spectacles and probably a scarf in the middle of the summer because New York people do that for some reason. And they talked and they told anecdotes, and then the ghostwriter recorded it, and then the ghostwriter went and wrote the book. That's not what we're doing here. You are actually the one who has to sit down and make a list of all the scenes that you want to do. You have to decide, okay, is this too private? Does this serve my story? So even though you're writing about yourself, I wouldn't exactly say it's easy. Even if you're a skilled novelist and you've been doing this for decades, writing about yourself and your own pain and the things that you've done in your life that you're not super proud of, that's a whole different animal than constructing a plot about a fictional person who maybe sort of kind of resembles your neighbor, but not really. The thing about writing books is they take a lot of time. Particularly with memoirs, they take a lot of, to coin a phrase, emotional labor. That is an actual thing, even though I think in modern media it's somewhat misused. It's not wrong to want to make money off of that labor, off of those years you spent toiling into your own personal background and coming out with something that will be useful to not just the people in your immediate circle, but people who you've never met before, people who you never thought needed to hear your message. So don't feel like you need to explain to others why you're spending money and time on marketing, why you're dealing with reporters, and why you're writing articles for the Huffington Post. Yes, you are doing publicity. Yes, you are trying to reach a broader audience. There's nothing wrong with it. And if anyone has problems with you airing your dirty laundry for profit, that sounds like a whole lot of jelly and no toast to me. Jelly is what the kids say for jealous. Or at least they used to 10 to 15 years ago. I don't know what they say now. So those are the 5 reasons why people write a memoir. If you're writing one, and it's a reason other than what I just listed, let me know in the comments so I can add that to my database of knowledge. So until next week, take care and write well.